Hi and welcome to PocketGamer.biz's weekly news roundup. This is for the week ending the 30th of August 2013. So I guess the big news of the week is Nintendo springing a surprise on everyone with its 2DS. There's obviously Nintendo seems to do this quite a lot, come up with consoles with slightly weird names that cause lots of debate. If we remember the Wii, 2DS is actually potentially even more interesting, really, because it's not just the name. Although there's obviously plenty of confusion now, having the DS, the 3DS, and now the 2DS. Obviously, behind the scenes, there's they're thinking quite hard about how they're going to kind of deal with the handheld market. Obviously, something we've been talking about for years, really, but certainly over the last year, kind of more regularly, with Nintendo saying it will never make games for mobile phones, and we assume Nintendo will never make a mobile device itself. So I wrote a piece about the 2DS this week, kind of trying to place it in context of Nintendo not making mobile games and what that means for it. Obviously, it means there are hundreds of millions of devices it can't now access. With the 3DS hasn't been a failure. It's sold kind of 32 million units so far, pretty good. But they don't have a good digital strategy, and obviously price is potentially still an issue. So in the long term, where there are $140 2DS, which, let's face it, we've been quite rude about it, doesn't look good. I mean, it doesn't have a hinge, which is a big thing has been for the DS range so far. Obviously, that's a cost-cutting measure. So it's one big screen, which is kind of like broken into two with the casing. It just looks ugly. It's just, why would you, for $40, why would you buy that one as opposed to the normal one? And I think it's interesting that in Japan they're not releasing the 2DS, so that's clearly the Japanese care much more about aesthetics than they think the American market does, which cares about price. We'll see how it goes. I mean, my view is the hardware doesn't matter anymore, per se, across anything, whether it's consoles or mobile or anything. So whether a 2DS is there or not doesn't really matter. It's the software that matters. The problem Nintendo has at the moment is the only people making good games for Nintendo hardware is Nintendo, and that's pretty hard in the scheme of things when there's over however many, 1 million developers in the world. If you're the only one making games for one platform, it's a hard ask for you to kind of fulfill every need. But that wasn't the only news of the week. I guess the big kind of industry conference was the Unity conference, Unite, and that's just finishing off in Vancouver, in Canada. So our editor Keith has been out there, kind of like snuffing around like a good news hound and kind of finding out what's going on. The big news there was obviously Unity is well known for its tools, and it's kind of had a publishing, you call it kind of quasi-publishing, or this kind of like distribution type thing they've had for a couple of years, and now they've kind of decided kind of whole hog are going into publishing. So I think quite a lot more to come from Unity on that. They've announced kind of one game, but it's not particularly kind of a big branded game. But they're going into publishing in a big way, and obviously with most mobile developers, or a large proportion of mobile developers, using Unity, and obviously indie developers and cross-platform developers, kind of Unity will have a good kind of pick of kind of projects going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of manage to combine a publishing approach with a kind of technological kind of tools approach. Quite different kind of businesses. So what else has been going on? A few kind of interesting kind of bubbling under news stories, which maybe kind of show us some trends. So King has sued Six Waves over some IP that it said they copied. I mean, this is like an ongoing thing a bit with Six Waves, which kind of ended up having a big kind of fandango with over Triple Town, and lawsuits are lawsuits. We won't kind of talk about that. We'll leave that to the lawyers. But I think it's more interesting is King doing that because everyone assumes King's going to IPO or attempt to IPO at some point, float itself on the stock exchange. And you would if you were going to do that, you would kind of maybe kind of start to tie up some kind of legal loose ends in the preamble to that, because who's going to buy shares in a company where they could be kind of suing people? So we'll see. I mean, that's a bit of a speculative thing on my behalf. A few other things from Unity. So Unity have announced like a 2D tool set, and they've also announced kind of a kind of hook up with Facebook. So now, I mean, Facebook are moving quite heavily. They've announced their own publishing in the past couple of months, and Facebook is really big now in mobile app distribution and advertising. So that's kind of a Unity and Facebook getting together. That's two quite powerful kind of companies coming together in the mobile space. A bit more on the tools news, not 2D at all. So Autodesk, well known for obviously 3ds Max and Maya, has announced a super cut down Maya version for indie developers and mobile developers. It's called Maya LT, and it's you can buy a license for $800 in perpetuality, or you can rent it from. I mean, it kind of depends exactly what kind of how you want to kind of pay and what level. But it's about kind of $35 to $50 a month, which is an enormous reduction on what otherwise would have been a $3,500 seat if you want the full version of Maya. Obviously, this Maya LT is cut down, doesn't have the renderer, doesn't have scripting, doesn't have plugins. Not to make you kind of buy the expensive one, but because most mobile developers wouldn't use them anyway. So that's kind of an interesting move. I guess we're kind of seeing kind of the high-end stuff coming down to mobile in all forms, in games, in tools, and everything. So that's a good one. What else have we been seeing? So in terms of kind of the ongoing Pocket Gamer.biz are kind of like our kind of regular column. So we looked at Plants vs Zombies 2, which obviously been kind of EA's big game, and we looked at that in our Charticle article this week. So look to see. It's done lots of downloads. Has it been successful? Still a bit early to say. So it's kind of a month after release. So it's doing okay. We'll wait to see whether the massive downloads are actually being monetized in a way as efficient as other games. Maybe that's the polite way of putting it. And in our monetizer article this week, it's slightly different to normal. I looked at Asphalt 8, which is a Game Loft's new racing game. Slightly different because it's not a free-to-play game, so it's 99 cents to buy on iOS and Android. So that kind of puts a barrier. So obviously you're kind of limiting your audience initially. Obviously, as the whole kind of range of in-app purchases, I kind of found it didn't monetize as heavily as other racing games. CSR Racing and Fast and Furious 6 probably kind of showed kind of some more sophisticated monetization than Asphalt 8 does at the moment. Just today, actually, we had a really. It's always good to hear developers kind of giving you a kind of a warts and all view on what's going on in their business. And Rubicon Development, a UK studio, has just kind of published a great post-mortem on its game. Get this right, it is the Great Big War Game. So its first game was the Great Little War Game. Its sequel was the Great Big War Game, and there's a very prolonged post-mortem about what went right, what went wrong, where they see the industry going, well worth checking out. And before I forget, obviously Pocket Gamer, we're known for, we do lots of events, lots of parties, networking. So I should be telling you about these things, I guess. So we've just announced a new one. So in Tallinn, in Estonia, we have one of our mobile mixer events, and that is on the 19th of September. Tallinn, a beautiful city in the Baltic region. So if you're around that in Tallinn or near Tallinn, or you want to go to Tallinn for the first time and need an excuse, Pocket Gamer Mixer, we're happy to see you there. So that's all the news this week. So I won't see you next week because I'm going to have my own little kind of soiree into the Nordic regions. I'm going to be on holiday. So cheers to you all. See you when I get back.